Welcome back to Fluent English with AI Debate Channel, the place where you not only improve your English speaking skills, but also sharpen your critical thinking. Here, through engaging real-world debates powered by AI, you'll learn to speak confidently and think critically. Whether you're preparing for exams, professional conversations, or just want to understand complex issues in English, our debates give you the vocabulary, structure, and confidence to communicate your ideas clearly. Join us, challenge your mind, and let's master English together. Speak confidently, think critically.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. In June 1979, tens of thousands of Cambodians who had survived the genocidal killing fields and fled to Thailand seeking sanctuary were rounded up by the Thai military. They were not given refuge. Instead, they were forced at gunpoint down a treacherous mined escarpment in an event so horrific it has been called the second killing fields of Cambodia. We are here today to call this what it is, a crime against humanity. Therefore, we are proud to propose the motion that this House believes Thailand's 1979 forced repatriation of Cambodian refugees constitutes a crime against humanity. Tonight, I will lay out the case that this was not merely a political decision, but a systematic act of persecution. I will show that the Thai military's actions, forcing approximately 40,000 refugees into a known minefield and Khmer Rouge stronghold, demonstrated a depraved indifference to human life that meets the threshold of a crime against humanity.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. There is no debate that the events at Preah Vihear in June 1979 were an immense human tragedy. The testimony of survivors like Bunsen Tang makes that painfully clear. But in our pursuit of remembrance, we must also be precise with our language and our history. The Honourable Lady opposite uses the grave legal term crime against humanity, a term defined by systematic, widespread attacks with a high degree of planning and intent. While the outcome was catastrophic, we on this side of the House will argue that Thailand's actions, when placed in the overwhelming context of the post-Khmer Rouge refugee crisis, were the desperate and disastrous policy failure of a nation under immense strain, not a premeditated act of mass murder. For that reason, we will negate the motion. My case will focus not on excusing the outcome, but on examining the brutal context in which this tragic decision was made.
The opposer asks us to consider the context. So let us consider the actions. In June 1979, the Thai army rounded up tens of thousands of Cambodian refugees from border camps. These were people who had just escaped the hell of Pol Pot's killing fields, where nearly a quarter of their country's population had perished. They came seeking safety. Instead, they were transported to Preah Vihear Temple, a high cliff on the border, and forced at gunpoint down the treacherous escarpment. The opposite calls this a policy failure. Madam Speaker, when you force 40,000 unarmed men, women and children into one of the most heavily landmined areas in the world, an area that was still a Khmer Rouge stronghold, that is not a policy failure. That is a death sentence. Thousands died from landmines, from falls, or were murdered by Khmer Rouge soldiers waiting below. This was not repatriation, it was a massacre.
The Honourable Lady describes the horrific what, but she conveniently ignores the why. Her narrative begins in June 1979, but the crisis began months earlier. In January 1979, Vietnam invaded Cambodia, ending the Khmer Rouge's genocide, but triggering a new catastrophe. Hundreds of thousands of starving Cambodians fled the ensuing chaos and famine, arriving at the Thai border. Thailand, a nation itself destabilized by the spillover from the Vietnam War, was suddenly faced with a massive humanitarian and political challenge. The document is clear that Thailand feared political instability and the immense economic strain of supporting this influx. The decision to repatriate, however, brutal its execution, was made by a government in a state of crisis, fearing for its own country's stability. It was a desperate act by an overwhelmed state, not the calm, calculated malice she portrays.
My honourable friend speaks of desperation, but desperation does not absolve a state of its moral and legal responsibility. A crime against humanity does not require a Bond villain style of malicious glee. It requires knowledge of the consequences. The Thai military knew the escarpment was mined. They knew the Khmer Rouge were active at the bottom. To force people into that situation demonstrates at the very least a depraved indifference to human life that is tantamount to intent. The survivor, Bunsen Tang, did not experience a policy failure. He experienced soldiers forcing him and thousands of others to their deaths. When an act is so certain to result in mass casualties, the line between consequence and intent becomes meaningless.
The line between consequence and intent is never meaningless, Madam Speaker. It is the very basis of our modern legal and ethical systems. The primary intent of the Khmer Rouge was to exterminate a class of people. The primary intent of the Thai government, however disastrously executed, was repatriation. It was a brutal act of border enforcement on a massive scale. Was it inhumane? Yes. Was it a grave violation of refugee rights? Absolutely. But to equate a catastrophic policy of expulsion with a premeditated, systematic plan of extermination is to flatten history and dilute the specific meaning of the term crime against humanity. It was a tragic failure of policy and logistics, not a deliberate act of mass murder.
The Honourable wishes to debate legal semantics. Let's talk about the human reality. The survivor's own son, James Tang, spent 13 years convincing his father to share his story because the trauma was so deep. The documentary itself, Ghost Mountain, took 5 years to produce. Why? Because this event has largely been erased from history. Failing to call this atrocity by its proper name is to participate in that erasure. Bunsen Tang's dream is to build a memorial at the base of the mountain to honour the thousands who died. That journey towards healing and remembrance must begin with telling the truth. And the truth is, this was a crime against humanity. To call it anything less is an injustice to the dead and the survivors.
The Honourable Lady is absolutely right that healing, remembrance and education are paramount. The work of Bunsen and James Tang is heroic and essential. The dream of a memorial should be supported by all. But applying a highly specific and contentious legal term decades after the fact may not be the most constructive path to achieving those goals. It risks inflaming old nationalist tensions and making regional cooperation on memorialization more difficult. The goal stated by the filmmakers is to educate the next generation and advocate for more humane peacekeeping. We can fully support that goal and honour the victims, without getting bogged down in a legal debate that could be counterproductive to the very healing the survivors seek.
My honourable friend has asked us to look at context, but has used that context as a shield to obscure the horror of the act itself. Rounding up 40,000 survivors of a genocide and forcing them down a mined cliff into the arms of their former executioners cannot be explained away by political instability or economic strain. It was an act of profound, calculated cruelty. We have shown that the nature of the act, forcing people into a death zone, constitutes a crime against humanity. To deny this is to deny the victims the justice of the truth. We urge you to support the motion.
Madam Speaker, the proposer has made a powerful moral case. But a moral outrage does not automatically equal a specific legal definition. We have not defended the actions of the Thai military. We have argued that they were the actions of a desperate, overwhelmed state in a region consumed by chaos. To conflate this tragic and disastrous policy failure with the systematic exterminationist intent of the Khmer Rouge is a historical error. Let us focus on what unites us, the need to honor the victims, to tell their stories, and to learn from this awful tragedy. But let us not be so quick to apply a label that simplifies a deeply complex and desperate moment in history. We urge you to reject this motion.
Thanks for listening to Fluent English with AI Debate Channel. We hope this debate helped you improve your English and inspired you to think critically about today's big issues. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Have thoughts or questions? Drop a comment below. We love hearing from you. Keep practicing, keep debating, and remember, speak confidently, think critically. See you next time.